Welcome everybody. Thank you for coming to this session. I know there's tons going on, but you're going to learn more from this one than anything else you're going to listen to the entire time you're here. So we've got 4 leading experts in their field. This is called Lessons from the Scandi Revolution, and thank you to the sponsor who is C21. So just by way of introduction, maybe some of you are less familiar with the Scandi region, but it's consistently been at the forefront of creativity in design, technology and television. With all 4 major territories, that's Denmark, Finland, Norway and Sweden. Sorry to spell it out, guys, but you just don't know, do you? Being in the top 10 of the fastest internet connections in the world, it's no surprise they're also leading in the adoption of connected TV, as streaming becomes second nature to not only the younger generation, but for the broader population too. With this advance has come the inevitable decline in linear TV audiences, but rather than bury their heads in the sand, like us, the leading broadcasters have all quickly adapted, developed technologies and embraced the shift to a digital space. But what problems does this raise and what lessons can we learn? These are the people who are going to hopefully help answer those questions for us. So if you could welcome Fredrik Ljungberg. No, I've got it wrong, haven't I? Correct me.
Ljungberg.
Ljungberg, I'm so sorry. Viaplay, Maria Mowbray from TV4 in Sweden, Peter Rosberg from DR in Denmark, Axel Eriksson from Discovery Networks in Sweden. So firstly, if I could just take you down the line, could you tell us a little bit about your role and the broadcaster and what it entails?
Yeah, Viaplay, I'm program director for Viaplay and Viasat, which is the NENT Group's SVOD service and pay TV provider. So we are, with Viaplay, trying to compete fully with Netflix. We are adding on sports, of course, which they don't. But other than that, we are a similar service with an edge in Nordic scripted content, where we try to position ourselves. And we use the combination of pay TV and SVOD as a tool to market and create awareness.
Maria?
Yeah, my name is Maria Mowbray and I'm head of development at Bonnier Broadcasting. And that's our parent company, so it's the TV4 group with the big main channel TV4 and smaller channels, and our AVOD service TV4 Play, but also C More, which is our SVOD service, and within Bonnier Broadcasting is also MTV in Finland. But I work with intake and commissioning of all non-scripted across all platforms, so and all channels.
And what would you say your channel is closest to in terms of a British one?
I would say TV4 is the equivalent of ITV here in the UK in many ways, and we have always sort of compared ourselves to that, so like the biggest commercial channel in the territory.
Okay,
yeah.
Peter?
Mm-hmm. My name is Peter Rosberg. I am head of scheduling, or head of publishing as we call it now, at DR in Denmark.
That's interesting, even that you called head of publishing now.
Yes, we have changed the whole terminology, so to speak. I am, among many things, responsible for driving the digital growth from linear TV. DR is highly equivalent to BBC in structure, and we are a public service broadcaster as well. We are mainly known for a decade of very successful dramas such as Borgen, The Bridge, The Killing, and so on. But we would, of course, also like to be known for being very progressive in terms of transforming our company into the new future.
Well, they're excellent shows. We've all heard of those. Axel.
Yes, I'm Axel. I oversee content and programming for Discovery Network Sweden. That is basically, I mean, we have the Discovery channels, of course, international channels. We also have 3 local channels. Channel 11, Channel 9 and Channel 5, which is the biggest. We are the 2nd biggest commercial channel in Sweden, very similar to Channel 5 here in UK. We also have Dplay, which is a hybrid service. It's both AVOD and SVOD. And that's, I mean, that collects all content from both the local channels and the Discovery portfolio.
So you've sort of taken us through your territories, a quick canter through. What, just in turn, if I might ask you, what's the sort of channel strategy been in order to survive in this ever-changing landscape?
Yeah.
It's only a small question.
It's only a small
obviously.
question.
Very small.
No, but I think for NENT Group, it's very much Viaplay first. It is we see it as the future, and we push extremely hard. But then, of course, in the combination with our linear channels, which are of quite a few, our AVOD service and our pay TV. So we're trying to use the ecosystem to optimize the audience flow between the platforms and the upsale from the free channels to the pay services.
And do you recognise some similarities in the way that you're all thinking?
Yes, I mean,
Axel?
yeah, I mean, it's you mentioned the PUT decline. I mean, just to start on top level, that's massive and it's scary, but it also creates, huge opportunities. And I mean, the viewing pattern, the viewing behaviors are changing. So I mean, on an overall level, we really like to say that it's, audience first. And so that's the overall strategy. I mean, we really care about the audience. We need to reach them. We need to reach as much viewers as possible. Yeah. So that's basically it. I mean, there's still a lot of people watching linear TV, but a lot of people has left. I mean, in our target group, I think we're close to 50% down in the recent 6 years. That's massive.
Dramatic,
I think
isn't it?
It's 46, I think the actual number is, but I mean, luckily, on the other hand, the opportunity in that is the increased viewing, on-demand viewing. But I mean, as you said, Fredrik, we have new competitors in that area, and that's fun, and I mean, it creates opportunities to co-produce and to get together. So, but audience first is basically the strategy, I guess.
And content first. I mean, it's still the same. You know, we still need to do the same job as we always have done, just to find the best ideas, and then it's just different ways of where and how we publish them, and when, and in which order, and so it's in some ways it's the same strategy, but it's just kind of we have more opportunities.
And so, in terms of following through on that strategy, is there a different way in which you assess whether you're going to go with one project versus another? If you're publishing it on all platforms, and you're obviously now working together as well, has that changed the way you're working?
I think it's kind of...
Fredrik?
No, but I think it's still kind of, as my colleagues are saying, that you have content and you have audience, and then on the contrary to what we have a lot more platforms to work with. And each platform, of course, needs something that drives them. But in the most cases, we can kind of make them work on multiple platforms. But of course, there are certain points where you also say that this one is solely to drive this one, because we're still in a brand position where we need to establish brands, especially for us. Where we have a massive task to position Viaplay versus Netflix or HBO.
And how are you ensuring that you cut through then?
For us, it's very much with a massive, broad offering, and also through a massive push on Nordic scripted content, originals, where with the last couple of years has done an enormous push for it, to find a situation where we stand out.
So is there a sense, Maria, maybe that you're doing fewer things and they need to be bigger?
In some ways, I mean, we are very, very protective of our big shows, those shows that have worked well for us for a long time. We spend an awful lot of time in sort of nourishing them and just sort of keeping them fresh the whole time. And when it works, to expand them and extend them. So we kind of, I don't know, this is probably not an English expression, where we dig where we stand. We look at the ideas that we have, and the people, our audience loves, and we try to see, okay, is there anything else we can do? So we've done quite a lot of successful things like that, so that we actually have more content around one brand.
So you're sort of giving more content, and for those shows that are working, you're making more out of them as well.
Sometimes, not always, but when it works, it always has to be relevant. But we have had some quite successful examples there.
So
and then, I mean, for us, we have always linear been quite big on reality with lots of success, and we've had sort of a scheduling strategy with stripped reality things like The Farm, and we got Biggest Loser and Idol. We've been stripping as well, but that sort of, we have more of those now. We brought back Survivor last year or this year, and shows which are big, lots of episodes. They also work extremely well online. That sort of binge viewing mentality that works really well. So in that way, it works both for linear and
even with unscripted versus scripted for you.
The scripted side, we do mostly sort of exclusive things for our SVOD service, C More, and that's sort of where we usually premiere them. And then, of course, we use them on the linear channel as well.
So, Peter, obviously Maria is talking about delivering more layers across multiple platforms. Is that a similar experience for you?
Yes, to some extent. I think at DR, being a public service broadcaster and having critical mass also on our on-demand platforms, I think you need to realize that all three pillars of the commissioning side of broadcasting are in dramatic change. That is the commissioning side, the scheduling part, and the exposure part. They're all in change right now. So we are trying to look at it very differently. We are not dependent on linear anymore, especially in the young targets. You said 60% decline. We have 70% decline over a few years among people under 30 on linear TV. Dramatically, only 4% did not have access to a physical TV before. Now it's 30%, so they don't even have a physical TV any longer in the target group. So we have a BBC 3 equivalent called DR3, and we decided not to look at it as a daily channel, but as a package, so to speak, a weekly package. So instead of commissioning programs that have a specific purpose on, for instance, Monday at 8:45, or with all in this competition and so on, we are now able to make programming because we want to do something with it to the target group, and not for tactical reasons. You can take the tactical reasons out of it. So we see better programming, and we can also see the potential is much greater. Our top 10 programming is now up to 3 to 4 times bigger in reach than it was when we just had linear. So the potential is huge, but of course we are fortunate as we don't have a business model, and we can and we have 100% penetration on an on-demand platform. But it goes very, very fast, and it's a lot faster than we thought just a couple of years ago.
Have you found it liberating then, not having to tactically schedule and commission?
And for me personally, I liked it before, but I think it's a new world, and it's actually quite relieving to some extent. We can make a broader offering, and we can also have happier users. I mean, before you could have a Tuesday that a big part of the target group would think was not for them a week. So we have a lot of disappointment when you have a channel over a week. But when you have a package every Sunday, as we have, which is kind of a takeover of an on-demand platform, then there is always something for you. And it's a very simple proposition. Every Sunday, there's a lot of new programming. And you know, these are all spoiled brats, you know, so they are very disloyal. And once their favorite program is not there any longer, they're off. But now we are not dependent on the single programming, but on the package. So they come back for the package. So for us, it's an immense success doing it that way, and probably the single most important decision that we have made commissioning and publishing wise.
And did you find it straightforward coming to that strategy and that decision? How did you get there?
I mean, again, we don't have the same risk as my colleagues here. We can try things out, and that's why it's very good to look at DR, because we try a lot of things that will fail, and some things that will be very successful, and we could do it at a much higher pace. And I would also encourage that all broadcasters across Europe share these visions and do's and don'ts, because it will take so much effort, so many resources to get on the other side. And I mean, there's no reason right now in competing against these things or keeping secrets, because if we don't get over on the other side, the secrets have no value, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you say that obviously for you, monetizing the space is clearly not an issue, because it's often something that UK broadcasters talk about a lot, that you can commission across all platforms, but how do you actually drive the revenue?
Good question. I mean, as with every transformation, digital transformation, I think, I mean, the behavior comes first and the money comes second, unfortunately. And I think we're on a, I mean, the money is coming in, but we don't really monetize the way on AVOD. I mean, we're not there yet, but I mean, I think the viewer demand on AVOD is bigger than the advertisers' demand, to be very, very clear. Luckily, they're still viewing linear, so I mean, it takes out each other, and it still works. But I mean, the business model is under pressure, absolutely. The SVOD is different. I mean, that's more about the package and creating a sustainable subscriber base, actually. And I mean, Fredrik is an expert on that. But it's so the big difference is between SVOD and AVOD, I would say. And AVOD is more connected to the linear world, and basically, hopefully, with the speed of declining, the increase would be the same. So, but once again, it's new.
And what do you think the lag will be in terms of, as you say, sort of audience behaviour first and then advertisers following? What do you think, what in your experience, what you're going through now, what do you think the lag will be?
Sorry,
what do you mean by that?
As in, at what point do you think it would take for the advertisers to catch up and spend money in the spaces where you have the viewers? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
it makes sense.
I mean, it's...
Who knows is maybe, maybe the answer.
No, we don't know the answer, but I mean, it's growing. We are growing fast from kind of small levels too.
And faster than you may have predicted?
No, probably not. We probably probably not. But it's a lot better than it was like a year ago or 2 years ago or something like that. So it is changing, and I think like in not such a long time we will look at total TV. It shouldn't really matter. A viewer is a viewer, and of course SVOD is something else. But if you talk advertisers, it shouldn't really matter. But it takes a bit of time. But like Axel said,
learning curve also.
Yes, and we just have to do it. We kind of have to. We cannot stop doing it, because we will have to sort of follow the flow, and then it will change eventually. We just have to have some muscles, I guess, to be able to live through it.
Maybe. Yeah. Fredrik, what's your experience?
No, but I think it's a learning curve for both sides also, because we see a transformation where the audience is moving, but we need to also join hands with the advertisers that are spending the money to find how we maximize this and give them certainty, because they're looking for impact and reach and effect. And we need to prove that it's the same effect or even better on the digital side.
Yeah, and I suppose, as Maria said, that a viewer is a viewer, and that should be equal across all platforms. But I suppose what we all know is that, generally speaking, that side of the business is quite conservative and needs to see success to follow it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you need someone to lead and take the chance.
So sort of talking about success, how are you measuring that? What sort of metrics are you using? The same metrics as you've always used in terms of measuring success? Is there equal proportion on a viewer on one platform versus the other? Are you just literally treating it the same?
As basically, for us, it's nothing the same, because it's all new KPIs and new measurements, because you need to look at subscriber growth, loyalty, upsale. So it's kind of, it's all new, and we are learning.
And are you able to measure that effectively, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. There is, of course, some trial and errors where you thought that you had a KPI that said something, but ended up not saying that. That's learning by doing. But I think we are there now to kind of see, finding the measurements and finding the trigger points to be able to keep an eye on what we need to do and how to push that.
What would you say your key learnings have been in the sort of recent past?
I would say the big change for us, of course it's kind of, but if you look at the loyalty and the live lifetime value of a subscriber, it's so immensely important. It's easy to kind of focus on just driving growth, but if you don't kind of take care of the audience you have, and that's a lot of pressure in the competitive market we have now, because the audience can move in such an easy way.
So you're sort of trying to avoid churn?
Yeah.
And how about you, Maria? The measurements for success changing?
I guess they do, but I mean, well, rating is rating and share is share, but online, well, I mean, for AVOD, it's started streams or time spent, and depending on which week it is, I was about to say there are different, you know, what is most important, so there's different strategies, but we have all these different measurements, and as long as we compare the right ones with the right ones, you can for sure see, and we set targets and everything else. But for us, I mean, another way for us to sort of work with this, since it's not as much money coming in on the AVOD yet, is of course to work clever with the programming budget. So we sort of commission holistically, we just use one budget, and then we try to sort of use it on all the different platforms, and that's quite good. And one learning that we have had is that we have done these extensions to some of our shows. For instance, we got The Farm, which is this docu-reality series, where we did an extension called The Cabin. So people, they compete, and there's a final in the week, and someone leaves, but they don't actually leave. They just end up in a cabin in the woods, and from there on, the competition continues, and they can fight their way back in. And we did that successfully for 1 or 2 series or something like that on TV4 Play. But then we decided, well, actually, you know, there might be people who watch just The Farm linear who don't actually go in. So they would maybe be interested in this material as well. So this year, or if it was last year, we edited together, they were about 15 minutes long, into a weekly show, and we put it on in a slot, like against Antiques Roadshow or something like that, and thought we'd try it out. And that worked really well, because there was an audience linear who hadn't seen that material, who loved to see what was going on in the cabin. And then we were thinking, okay, so now we're going to lose viewers online, but we didn't. So it's sort of...
Yeah, so that didn't have a negative impact?
No, it didn't.
It
so it seems
more of a
to, yeah.
virtuous circle.
So when we do all these different things, quite often it seems like one thing markets the other, quite often. So it's sort of, we're trying lots of different things, and that seems to be...
And with all these sorts of hungry mouths to feed, is there enough to go round, do you think? In terms of, you know, when you're doing extensions to brands, are you finding, I mean, obviously you've demonstrated with The Cabin and The Farm, but are there some points on some programmes where you say, do you know what, there's not enough material to put this in another space?
Yeah, sure.
And then you make that decision on a case-by-case basis?
Yeah. We only have a few of these examples, but no, otherwise, I mean, our biggest, we also, of course, commission unique ideas obviously for SVOD, but also for TV4 Play now. So Love Island is our latest one that we launched just a couple of days ago, and that is TV4 Play first, where it goes out. But then, of course, we also have a linear window for it, but it's sort of meant for.
And how the audience taken to that?
Good, I think. It's only been 3 episodes, so I think it looks like we seem to be where we thought we would be so far, but it's still far too early to say. But
so from your perspectives, Peter and Axel, I mean, I suppose obviously they've got 2 slightly different perspectives, obviously, but what do you think the impact is in terms of how you're measuring success, and therefore that impact on investment and recommissioning decisions?
I think you have to look at quality as a measurement to a high extent. And the reason is that when you choose a channel, what you used to do before, you were kind of like in a flow. And maybe some of the programs weren't your favorite, but they were there, and you're waiting for the next program and so on. There is a much more personal relevance if you choose to click on it.
Yeah.
And that is what we need to remember, that we need people to actively choose the program. And once they do that, we know that the program is a success. You can explain success on linear TV by many, many factors, but not necessarily quality. It can be weak competition, or it could be a strong channel, or between strong programming and so on. But when you actively choose something on demand, you know it's a good program.
Yeah.
How many times it's better or more relevant? I don't know.
3 times.
3 times. Okay,
There
I
you
would
go,
say
there's the
2
algorithm,
to
3 times.
Yeah.
Comes better.
But that's what I think we need to look at. And those programs that do well on demand, they're just good programming. And that's what we need to find a way of measuring quality in a much higher extent than we do today, where it's just consumption of minutes, basically.
Yeah, it's true.
It was
Didn't agree
very-
more.
Yeah, no, definitely.
actually.
I mean, the active choice is really, I mean, it puts a lot more pressure on the ideas because, I mean, there's no coincidence. You don't really zap in or end up winning due to weak competition in an on-demand world. So that's really, I mean, interesting, great opportunity. And another really, I mean, simple way of looking at the is also, I mean, a VOD viewer more or less always starts from the beginning. And that's really, I mean, in a linear world, we are very used to creating content that is very stickable, and you really should, or I mean, it needs to be stickable minute 22 or whatever. In a VOD world, people start from the start, and that's great. I mean, that's really, you can deep dive more into the storytelling, and it creates a lot of more opportunities, I would say. But in terms of success, it is, I mean, in commercial world, it is of course viewers. That's what it is. But I guess, I mean, joking aside, 3 times better. But I mean, from my point of view, I mean, an active choice, it is something else than just slipping into.
But given, like you say, there's so much choice as active choice, how do you decide, therefore, what you're going to commission and what you're not? How are you making those decisions? Are you looking for, I mean, clearly you're looking for good shows, obviously take that as a given, but are there any other factors that you're considering in terms of talent or noise or marketability? What are the other factors that you might be considering?
Yeah, I think for our sake, we're of course, with that huge amount of data that the service generates, it always starts there. But then you can't get all the way with data. Because then you will end up with kind of streamlined service with no spread in the content offering. So it's, of course it is all of those things. It is the data, the behavior, it is a judgment experience, but kind of, okay, if this works, this should work. We need to create noise. There's a lot of kind of factors that needs to go in there. But for us, of course, it starts with data.
And is that something that you all share in terms of the data? I'm assuming there's differences here.
I mean, it's always data in the bottom. I mean, if it's linear, I mean, we have data as well. We look at how the viewers behave, but it's, I mean, relevance and must see is more important than ever. I mean, that's old words, and it's always important. But in a world where people do active choices, you need to break through, and you need to have a relevant story that people choose.
So, for example, are you finding that more local stories, more domestic, how's that manifesting itself? Are there some sort of choices you're making that have changed as a result of the changing world?
I would say we look at it 2 ways. I know a lot of people saying it. It's the big things and the small things that we're looking at, and kind of like scraping out the things in between, the things that are not really important. And the big ones, which could be an 8 o'clock show in the old world, we call it A+ programming. I mean, in lack of a better terminology, those really big things that gathers the nation are more important than ever. And the small things, we call them specialized programming, where you just are drawn to it. Maybe it doesn't gather massive audiences, but they love it, and they will choose it.
And those audiences are very loyal, therefore.
Yes, exactly. And maybe just a couple of those programs will make a happy viewer and pay their license fee and so on. So it's much more about the very big things and the specialized things that have high personal relevance.
Mm.
Does that resonate?
Yeah, it absolutely does. And for us, of course, again, comparing public service to a commercial broadcaster, it is difficult because on big TV4, you know, we need to have the numbers, we need to have big broad channels that take in a big chunk of the whole audience on every slot. But I think we are also finding that, okay, all of those shows, they are both on AVOD and SVOD service, and people can watch them there with ads or without ads on C More. But I think we're finding that certain shows that we maybe don't do so much anymore on linear, like for instance, we struggle a bit with acquired drama in our normal schedule, and documentaries we haven't done so much, and certain sort of bit more niche factual things. I think those things we will have to start thinking about again for our other platforms.
Yeah, because otherwise
it just becomes same. You know,
yeah.
we need to be a bit broader. And be more relevant, like be really relevant for some people, like you're saying. So, but that is, of course, a challenge economically. It's for us. But
do you see certain genres falling away, Peter? Are there some things that feel either not of the moment or just not as relevant?
Yeah, countdown programming. No, that aside. I think nice to have programming, programs about something is just, we see that it doesn't get clicked on at all. So I need, in this very hyper competitive environment that we see right now from big streaming giants, we need to find a truly unique place in the market so the viewers know where to go. And we have to tap into what is truly local and contemporary and ungeneric, and all these things that make us in an opposition to the international generic streaming giants. So our proposition has to be even more clear than it has ever been, actually. So I think the competition is actually great because it makes us more clear. It makes us do better programming, more local programming, more relevant programming. But it will take time, of course.
Would any of you like to share any examples of shows that you've commissioned that you thought would work and then didn't work, and why you think they didn't work? Just because sometimes, sorry, not to put you on the spot necessarily, but just sometimes that's just as helpful to understand the strategy, that you thought that this might work, but actually what the audience didn't come to it for X or Y reason.
do you mean digitally specific or anywhere in the...
Anywhere, given that what we, I suppose, are talking about in the theme that's emerging is that it doesn't matter where it is, it's got to cut through wherever you put it.
So many flops to think through.
But we keep pushing them away from our life.
So many mistakes.
No, I only say it not to highlight that, but just to demonstrate that, you know, A, there's not a science to this, one assumes, there isn't a science to it, but that a lot of information or a lot of decisions you're making now are being influenced by a lot of data and decisions, so data and information, so that's helpful, but sometimes you can still predict something might work and it didn't quite for whatever reason.
I think there is one odd thing that really doesn't work, and that's when a program has a sort of professional host, like a sort of anchorman kind of host, and every time we do it the other way around, whereas the host is the cast, basically. It works much, much better. So it becomes their story instead of our story, so to speak. And that makes a hell of a difference. And has been quite fascinating. How
that's interesting. Do you think the audience are looking for more of a personal connection to the show and the story that they're telling?
Yes.
Does that?
Yeah, I mean, real emotion, and it's a lot about emotions.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, moving from once again the active choice. I mean, I think the audience expects to feel something. It's always been like that, but it's more, I mean, more relevant now, and that, I mean, that really connects to what you're saying. The host, I mean, still there's a lot of great hosts that has cue cards, but I mean, the more they can really connect to the story and be a part of the storytelling, whatever show it is, that really helps. I
think that chimes with, you know, some shows here where you feel like, what is your direct connection to this story as the host? And if you don't have one, why are you being paid to go around the world? for example? What are you actually going to reveal of yourself in order for me to find a deeper personal connection to the story as the viewer? Does that chime?
Yeah, but I think for us, it's the beauty of SVOD is, of course, that we're not chasing big numbers. We're chasing numbers and usage. And it's hard to say because we're in a growing phase. The market is exploding and we get in new subscribers and the usage just keeps on increasing. I think that I'd rather go the other way because that's easier and say that we took a tremendous chance on James Corden because it's never really worked with these US talk shows. And of course it still doesn't do wonders in pure usage, but the brand and PR value that we get out of it is enormous.
So in your books, it's a success?
Yeah. Because it ticks 3
Did
out of
that
6
take you by
boxes.
surprise? Because you're right.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a history
No.
of those US talk shows of translating.
So it did take us by surprise. We took a chance, and because we okay, let's try and see because we constantly need to broaden the offering. We can't continue just being the same more scripted, more US acquired and movies. We need to evolve and broaden up. So we took a chance, and it really surprised us.
And when you think about that, does that echo Peter's thought of because maybe the show has a more global profile?
Yeah.
That helped?
And it's also a global profile. It's very engaging. It's fun. It's really fun. And it has a young audience that what we see, it's on YouTube, but we see a tremendous flow from, it's downtrended on YouTube and gone over to us in our markets.
And should we talk about rights? Because what's the position?
We want them all.
Yeah.
Finally.
So I'm assuming yes. Is that the?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
it. Well, that was a quick answer.
fully
then.
flexible, all right.
Yeah, we want them all. We want full flexibility, and we want it for a very long time.
And for not any more money that you're going to pay for it.
Yeah.
Good, excellent. That's the brave new world, or the world we're actually in.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably the case for everyone, yeah?
Yes, once again, it's audience.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not being greedy, but it's really, I mean, no, but really
You're right.
true. This is important because, I mean, there's no way that we can commission an expensive. We really want to commission expensive shows, but we need to monetize them. That's hard facts. And having 4 linear broadcasts and that's it. I mean, it's
doesn't cut it anymore, does it?
And that's not. I mean, at the core of it, that's not how the audience watch content anymore. So I mean, we really need to meet up with the audience new behavior. So that's what it is. And of course, I mean, I totally understand. It's this. I mean, especially with international formats and other rights, it's new and it's really. I mean, you said that we were on the phone and you said that people need to digest this new fact. And I mean, we have to make room for that as well because it's new and we have to be very open and help each other out to reach a point where we can really reach the audience where they want to consume the content.
And are you finding resistance from producers, or how's it?
I think we're trying to look at it a bit more pragmatic. We have set a year of exclusivity. So we look at it in terms of non-exclusive and exclusive. I mean, our charter has just been cut by 20% from 1st of January. So, of course, we need to look at other models of doing this. But I think the most important is basically to look at exclusivity and non-exclusivity. And now we are saying 1 year and having it exclusive.
And do you think that's helping and it's realistic and it's getting deals done?
It works quite well, and it works very well for the viewers. Before we have had much less, so but it's just strictly necessary. And if we can't have it, sometimes we just have to say no.
And that's happened.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's just how it is. I mean, that's just the game.
Same for you, Maria, in terms of rights?
I'd say that we've had these discussions for quite a long time, and it's definitely, we are getting there. I don't find it a big problem. We seem to be able to do deals that seem okay for all parties, and that there is a good understanding of why it has to be like this. So I think, I mean, a negotiation is always a negotiation, but the general sort of why do we need this, and so that seems to be quite okay. Making it a bit easier than it sounds maybe, but it's not like it seems like we're all getting there.
No,
Yeah, I mean, it is-
there is an understanding now.
Yeah,
that kind of,
yeah.
Sure is.
There's a movement, and we need more rights.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I suppose, as you say, this is where we are. So, sort of, I suppose everyone has to just be pragmatic and deal with it.
Yeah.
I'd like to take some questions from the floor, if anybody has any, before we wrap up and I ask a final question. Please don't meet me with a stony silence, because that'd be really unhelpful. It's a put your hand up and shout out kind of place, if that's all right. Oh, there's someone at the back. Obviously, I don't know who you are, and if you stand up and shout, that would be helpful.
How do you see, because there's a lot of broadcasters who are interested in short forms, I mean 10 minutes or 50 minutes, how do you see short forms in the future, and script-wise, script content?
So I hope everyone had that question, but what place does short form content have?
I think it has a growing place in the market. The audience is now. What we see is that the audience consume us wherever they are, and sometimes you have lesser time because it's hard to. If you have 3 minutes waiting for a bus or whatever it is, it's kind of disturbing to start a 45 minutes episode. So I think it's kind of. What we see, it's growing, and the interest will grow because you will need to meet the audience's need wherever they are and how long it might be. But you still need the quality. I think that's the biggest difference. You can't do shorts and say, let's do it cheap and quick. It still has to have the story. It has to have the quality. So I think it's gonna grow on that side as well.
Yeah, we have all lengths as well. It's case by case, idea for idea, you know, what suits, and maybe not shorter than 10 minutes maybe per episode, but from there and upwards. So.
And the strategy doesn't change, whether it's short form, long form? No? You're still looking for quality, as you say?
Yeah, yeah.
Same for you?
Yeah.
Yeah? Next question, if I may. Gentleman in the middle who's just put his hand up.
Question about the role of well-known personalities in the new landscape. I mean, there's a tendency to put more emphasis on the inside view, like a guide to the world, instead of the famous personalities. But famous personalities, they are still driving force behind ratings. How does it work with your platforms?
So if everyone heard that question, it's sort of where do famous personalities fit in trying to drive audiences to shows, if I've summarised that correctly?
Yeah.
So I think for us, we need to look at it in terms of having some sort of curation, which is manual, so to speak, and then a personalization underneath. I mean, we are not so fond about having people just going into a chamber and just staying there forever. We need to make some sort of public service algorithm that will, and to take them out of things and see other things, like let's say you would jump from genre to genre, that is something that personalization should be doing for at least a public service broadcaster, as time consumption is not our primary focus.
Given the sort of James Corden example, how much of that was a factor that it was James Corden, do you think?
He was, to be honest, he was very unknown
Oh, okay.
in the Scandinavian markets. And it became a phenomenon with his carpool karaoke. Kind of, he entered into something new that made it interesting and fun, and the audience, especially the young ones, found it very exciting. But I think the kind of, for us, we're mainly doing scripted content, and there's two factors there. Of course, it's easier to promote and launch if you have a big name. But then we have the other responsibility. We're kind of small markets. We also need to introduce new talents to be able to sustain the growth and the need on the market. So it's a combination, because we can't either just, because that has been a problem in the past where we just go around on the same super famous actors. We need to broaden that up because the audience will kind of, okay, I saw him as a cop yesterday and I'm not buying him as a doctor today. So we need to broaden it up, but you still need some kind of promotable name as something to drive the launch.
But from your perspective, you're still taking risks, as you say, then on new actors, new acting talent.
Yeah, we have
in order to grow the stars of tomorrow.
Yeah, and also there's no secret that the SVOD so far it's growing tremendously in all the target groups as well. But the core is still the younger ones, and they of course want to be able to see people basically similar to their own age. So it's just not oldies like us running around. That's not fun. So we need to introduce something more.
Yeah, it's a sort of marquee name casting in order to get a commission away seems to be a real hurdle you have to jump in the UK. But not so much with you then? No,
not for us at least. It kind of, we can go the other way because we can find it through the director or the creator.
Exactly, there's really other ways to break through, and I mean the breakthrough layer, whatever it is, it's important. I would say. I mean, exactly. if it's a current phenomenon or if it's a story, I mean that's the core of it. I mean, the audience really have to find something to connect to. Could be a host, could be a phenomenon, could be a talent, could be a brand new name. I mean, that's really connectable. So I think that comes first. I mean, and not really. I mean, if it's a celebrity or how known the person is, it's more about.
Well, it's encouraging to hear you're taking risks on new talent, because that's important, isn't it?
Yeah.
Michael Beale, would you like to ask a question?
2 questions.
Yeah.
In terms of pitch your ideas, do they need to come in as multi-platform ideas, or is that something you can help with? And then the second part of that is, what if there's no single measurement of success? What's the life cycle of a show? Do you have to do 2 or 3 series before you know it's a hit? Because it takes 2 years before you can find your audience.
So hopefully everyone heard that question, but maybe not at the back. So how do you pitch, and is it a multi-platform way of pitching? And in terms of measuring success, do shows need to breathe for 2 or 3 series in order to feel like they've been a success? So have I summarised that correctly?
I can start. A couple of years ago, we used to get, with almost every pitch we got for every show, producers came and they always had like an extra idea. Oh, this is extra material for the web, or this is, a little spin-off, a little extra. So which was really good because we had probably asked for it, but we sort of ended up feeling, well, in so many cases, this is not relevant. I don't want to see that extra cut-out material. I don't want to, there were so many ideas that were just not interesting, and it's still like that. So I would say you definitely don't need to come with something extra all the time. But if you do have what you think is a great idea, which is something that can add to, which is another layer, another side, then please do. And quite often, for us anyway, it has happened in sort of collaboration, maybe after 1 season, 2 seasons. It maybe doesn't happen immediately. It happens after a while. But no, you do not need to. You just need to come with a great idea. And sometimes it's a great idea for all platforms, and sometimes it's a very linear idea and maybe not so good on.
And to Mike's point, do you think you can help a producer work that out with you?
Yeah, absolutely. If we both see the potential, so we do that a lot.
And in terms of the measurement of success, do you feel like shows need 2 or 3 series to bed in to be able to demonstrate whether they're successful or not? Do you give them that long of a chance?
Well, I think for our sake, it's if we just do 1 season, it's a total failure. But we, of course, measure the first season, but as long as it doesn't perform tremendously bad, we need to build loyalty and continuity. We need to build 2 or 3 seasons at least. So it's,
are you ever commissioning that from the outset?
Yeah.
That's punchy, isn't it? That's good, isn't it?
Yeah,
You
but
never
sometimes
share
you
your
also
numbers, Fredrik. That's really frustrating. You
It's
know.
all coming out now.
That's the fun part.
Exactly.
Would you ever consider commissioning multiple series from the get-go?
I mean, it's business, but as Fredrik said, I mean, if we end up with one season, it's a failure. Being so much great content out there, it's really, it's really, we put a lot of effort from all parts, production, talent, everyone, to make it break through. And I guess we have more patience today than earlier, hopefully, because it's so hard to get a new hit. So we really struggle hard and do our best, everyone, to keep it going.
But it really comes down to what it is. I mean, if you really feel this is a really good show, but for one reason or another, the audience did not find it, it was badly marketed, they didn't understand what it was, or it was up against something else, so we will absolutely renew. But sometimes you are not so sure. And then, it's like, it's so, and it's like, so it really depends. But we have an old great example, which was Come Dine With Me, Halv 8 hos mig, which had played out in many countries before Sweden, and we had seen the ratings everywhere, and it had the same curve and everything, and we thought, okay, and we liked the show, let's do it. And it started off so badly, we had such low numbers, a whole season, and we stripped it across the week, and that was quite tough then, to sort of, okay, let's do it again. But we did, because, and we knew then that we had marketed really badly, and then it started, and we just launched our 20th series, I think. So that was one of those times where we dared to do it, and it worked. But it depends.
And can I ask if there's any final questions before we wrap up? Would you like to shout loudly?
What's your position towards OTT players like Netflix and Amazon? Obviously, they are competitors in your territory. Do you sell content to them in your own territory and worldwide, or do you say no, they can't see?
From a Viaplay perspective, it's kind of, the Nordics is such a small market, and it's not kind of, the cost for doing great content is not relative to our smallness. So we're seeking partners everywhere. It will be a discussion of investments and windowing, but we can work with Netflix, we can work with Amazon, we can work with HBO, we can work with these guys. So we're open to everything. I think in the recent discussions, it's more of a lockdown from the global players, that they want to kind of keep protecting their position. But we are kind of, so it's easier to find collaborations on the local market, because we all face the same challenge. But for us, we're constantly in discussion with them to see if we can find something to do.
And you're demonstrating already that you're obviously working together in a way that you might not have done previously.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to unite together.
Yeah.
Hands up if you'll be turning off the linear terrestrial signal.
Yeah, we will. But we have 6 channels now, and when is a little bit unclear, but soon we will cut 2 of the linear signals. And be 100% digital. And let's see what happens.
Wow. Very exciting.
Yes, and scary.
Please join me in saying thank you to our incredible panel. They all spoke in English. I did not speak one word of Swedish, Danish or Norwegian or Finnish or anything from your region. And they've been incredible, so please say thank you.